Hello, everybody. Um, Today, I want to talk to you a little bit about Rebecca Joins. She's a predatory teacher, and this is going to be a really short live that just sets the scene, and then we're going to do a deep dive into this case because it's really quite interesting. So, Rebecca Joins was 28 at the time that these offences started and 30 when she was convicted on the 17th of May of this year of offences relating to sexual activity with two boys aged 15 to 17 who were pupils at the school where she taught high school maths in Greater Manchester in the UK. The offences started in October of 2021 and carried on until April of 2023. The teens can't be named because of their age, but they were referred to throughout the trial as Boy A and Boy B. Boy A spent the night at her flat when she was 28 and he was 15. And whilst he was there, they had sex twice. Boy B first had sexual contact with Joins when he was 15, but they waited until he was 16 before they had sex. But he was a pupil in the school where she was at that point still employed, albeit suspended. And so it was still an offence because it's an offence, as we'll go on to have a look at, to have sexual contact with a person under 18 who is a pupil at an education establishment where you're employed. So you can see on this slide, we've got 4 offences of activity with a child, and we've got 2 offences of sexual activity with a child whilst in a position of trust. Now, the 4 offences relate to offences under the Sexual Offences Act 2003, and under that act, section 9, it's an offence to have sexual activity with a child under 13 or under 16 where the defendant didn't reasonably believe that they were 16. Well, we know that she knew their ages. She was their teacher. And a person is liable, when convicted in the Crown Court, to a prison sentence not exceeding 14 years. Now, those offences include, I've just described, SA, and we're not talking about assault, we're talking about activity, albeit I think it's fair to say when a person is under 16, it ought to be called an assault, but there you have it. The wording of the act is activity. And it includes the perpetrator penetrating the anus or sexual organs or mouth of a victim with their sexual organ or any part of their body, or the victim doing the same to the perpetrator. So obviously we've got a female perpetrator here, but that doesn't make a difference. It's still the same offence. And then in terms of the offences related to a person in a position of trust, we look at Section 16 of the Sexual Offences Act of 2003, and that includes sexual activity with a person under 18 that the defendant didn't reasonably believe was 18, and that the defendant is in a position of trust. One of those positions of trust includes being a teacher at an institution where the victim was receiving an education. So it's got to be a teacher and a pupil at the same education establishment. It includes intentional touching of the victim, and that the touching is sexual in manner. And for that offence, a person is liable to a prison sentence not exceeding 5 years. Now, obviously, we've got 6 offences here, so that sentence could be quite lengthy if the sentences were to run consecutively, so one after the other. But the judge may say that they would run concurrently, so at the same time. We'll have to find out about that when she's sentenced. But let's look at how she was convicted. There was a trial that lasted 2 weeks. This is Rebecca Joines. The first picture here on the left is when she was first in a relationship with child A, boy A, and then the others are related to when she was at trial. So there was a trial that lasted for 2 weeks. There was a jury of 7 men and 5 women, so quite evenly balanced. And after that 2-week trial, they went out to deliberate on Thursday, the 16th of May. They then went out for a second day of deliberation, so they deliberated for in total 9 hours. And they came back on Friday, May the 17th, with a conviction for all counts. And the judge granted Miss Joines, who had been supported all the way through the trial by her father, who's pictured here with her coming and going from the court building. She granted a bail, and she did that pending the sentencing hearing on the following basis. So this is what she said. There's a baby in this case who has done nothing wrong and is entirely innocent of all wrongdoing, and you will obviously want to see her before the sentence is passed. I do understand that, but you must be under no illusion what's going to happen on the 4th of July. So that is the date that she's going to be sentenced, the 4th of July. And it's likely, based on what the judge has said there, that she's going to get a significant custodial sentence. So she'll be sent to prison for quite some time. Now, there's mention there of a baby. What happened was that the defendant, Miss Joines, had an 18-month-long relationship with boy B that started when he was 15. As a result of that relationship, in April of 2023, she became pregnant with his child, and she gave birth in January of 2024 to a daughter. Within 24 hours of that child being born, she was removed by Children's Social Care and placed with the father and his parents. So it's boy B and the baby's paternal grandparents, and they're now caring for her. Joins is seeing the baby 3 times a week for 3 hours, and that has to be supervised. So very sad circumstances all round as a result of this teacher's inability to maintain proper boundaries. And we'll find out on the 4th of July exactly what sentence it is that she's going to receive. The trial took place at Manchester Crown Court. You can see that in this picture. And the judge presiding over the trial was Arona Rachel Smith. The prosecutor was Mr. Allman, and the defence was Michael O'Brien. So those are the people who appeared in the hearing, representing the different parties. And then the police lead for this case was Detective Constable Beth Alexander from GMP's Child Protection Investigation Unit. Now, I just want to play for you here, assuming that it will let me. I'm not sure that it will. When we're doing the full deep dive into this case, I'll play for you what was said by the prosecutor after the trial, but I'll tell you here what she said. So this was Jane Wilson, Senior Crown Prosecutor for the CPS Northwest, and she said, Rebecca Joins is a sexual predator. Joins was entrusted with the responsibility of teaching and safeguarding children. She abused her position to groom and ultimately sexually exploit schoolboys. Her behaviour has had a lasting impact on them. The CPS worked with Greater Manchester Police to build a strong case to put before the jury, including eyewitness testimony, phone evidence showing the messages sent by Joins, and CCTV footage. I would like to thank the victims for supporting the prosecution. Joins will now face the consequences of her actions. We also heard at that point, outside the court building after the trial, from Detective Constable Beth Alexander from GMP's Child Protection Investigation Unit. And she said, firstly, I would like to thank the victims and their families for being brave enough to come forward and work with us in our investigation. Rebecca Joins is a sexual predator. She was their teacher and they rightfully put their trust in her. But Joins decided to abuse her position and used it to groom 2 teenagers. We welcome today's verdict and now wait for Joins to face the consequences of her actions. I would like to thank the officers who have worked closely with the victims and their families in establishing the full circumstances of this case, as well as the investigation team for their hard work and dedication during this investigation. The 2 victims and their families have asked for their privacy to be respected. Now and moving forward, they all wish to carry on with their lives and put this ordeal behind them. And you can understand why that would be, particularly, I would say, for boy B, who not only has to live with the consequences of Rebecca Joins' actions, but has been thrust into fatherhood at the age of 17. I'll leave it there for now. Thank you all for watching. Remember, if you see something, say something. And until next time, stay safe.